Okay, a bit of a joke. Anybody here knows what this is about? Yay, I see. Yay. So, What, Where, When is an intellectual game show established in 1975 in Soviet Union, which gained big popularity back then and is still quite popular in countries that were once occupied, like Ukraine, Georgia, better? Georgia, Estonia, Kazakhstan, and many more. And the idea of the game is to have a team of 6 nicely dressed people who would be given 1 minute to find an answer on some tricky question purely based on their knowledge or the hints that are given in the question itself. Yeah. So in the original TV show, questions would be sent by the audience in advance. And if the team could not give the correct answer, the question author would be given some decent money. And I loved watching this game on TV when I was a kid. And at some point, I even joined the fan club and participated in what's called the sport version of the game, where many teams of not that nicely dressed people compete in who gives the most of correct answers. And it was a lot of fun. Naturally, like in every team sport, teams have to constantly practice to be in shape for the game. And for this sport, practicing means getting together occasionally for a couple of hours and practicing in answering a bunch of questions from the open database of questions. And this open database of questions had a very basic web UI, which was not very convenient to use on the mobile devices. So that's why, as mobile apps developer, decided to solve this problem and created a mobile app for convenient training. So this is a SOVA app, which in Ukrainian means owl. It's created with Flutter and is open source on my GitHub. So far, I only released an Android version of this application. So for beta testing distribution, I previously used Google Play Tracks. But as Flutter allows creating multi-platform applications from a single code base, I'm now considering releasing an iOS and web versions of this application. And it will be more convenient for me to have all data about beta testing and testers' feedback in one place. And I find Firebase App Distribution serves a perfect solution for this. So today we are going to walk you through the process of configuring and using Firebase App Distribution through web interface and also from the command line and CI. And we will use this application as an example. And before we dive deep into this topic, a few words about me. I'm Oleksandr Leushchenko, mobile development expert, passionate about quality software from Ukraine. I'm Google developer expert in Dart and Flutter and a Women Tech Makers ambassador. Currently, I work in a company called Tide as a senior staff engineer. And I frequently talk at TED conferences and write deep dive blogs about Flutter development. So subscribe to my socials account to hear about my recent work.
Ms. Oleksandr Leushchenko. I am GDE in Flutter and Dart from Ukraine. Unfortunately, I cannot meet with you today in person because of the war. I'm grateful to each and every one of you who supports my country. Please don't stop. I know that's not easy. Believe me, we value your support. If you don't know how you can help, ask Anna or reach me on Twitter. Nevertheless, today I'm happy to share my knowledge on the mobile app distribution topic. Let's start.
So let's start by taking a moment and talking about producing a quality mobile application. While the actual development is the first 90% of the delivery, there is other 90% which includes testing, releasing, running experiments, collecting analytics, and so on. And for the purposes of this talk, let's focus on testing strategy. A testing strategy is a high-level plan that outlines how the mobile app will be carried out throughout the development cycle. And that's a huge topic of its own. But the important bit for us today is that it must define the politics regarding builds distribution for testing. You probably wouldn't want to publish all your builds to production and test the application together with your users. Often, builds are distributed in rings. For example, there might be internal, external, and production ring, or just ring 0, ring 1, ring 2, and so on. The internal ring might include developers, QA engineers, project manager, designers, all the folks who are actively working on new features and who will not panic if they see an incomplete feature or a bug. The external ring has a broader audience of insiders for the project. That might be all employees of the company, friends and family who can easily reach out to report a problem, or just some loyal users who are ready to provide you feedback or on the new functionality. The production ring obviously is the ring for all users. And if you're working on native mobile applications, you probably deploy your apps to TestFlight and Google Play. Both of these platforms allow you to create distribution rings. However, when you're working on a cross-platform application, you might want to keep all of your internal builds in one place, and that's when Firebase App Distribution shines. It's relatively straightforward to set up and doesn't require the same level of configuration as, for example, Google Play Alpha channels. So let's now set up a Firebase distribution from scratch for my Sava project. First, I'm going to show you how to configure and use Firebase distributions through the web interface called Firebase Console. And then Oleksandr will help us automate things. If you have never created a project before in Firebase Console, it will look like this. In my console, I already have a few projects, but now let's create a completely new project for my Sava application. So I tap Add Project. I enter the project name, and here you see the project automatically gets a random suffix to ensure the name uniqueness. Here I'm suggested to use Google Analytics, which will require additional setup, so I just skip it for now. And that's it. Now the Firebase project is being created. It takes some time, but this is a one-time action. And when you create a new Firebase project, you're actually creating a Google Cloud project behind the scenes. You can even create a Google Cloud project first and then add Firebase services to it later. Because of that, you can interact with the project in Firebase Console, in Google Cloud Console, and in Google APIs Console. You can use products and APIs from both Firebase and Google Cloud. Billing and permissions for the project are shared. Unique identifiers are also shared. And deleting a project deletes it across Firebase and Google Cloud. On a free tier, you can have around 5 to 10 Firebase projects. Now that the project is created, the next step is to create application inside it. As you see, it supports Android, Apple, and web apps. So when I develop an app targeting different platforms, Firebase project is a convenient container to configure them all. All Firebase apps registered to the same Firebase project share and have access to all the same resources and services provisioned for the project. For example, they share the same backends, like Firebase hosting, authentication, real-time database, cloud Firestore, cloud storage, and cloud functions. So I will start with creating an Android application, and will demonstrate most of the functionality with it today. But for iOS, for example, the setup is almost the same. So I tap on the Android icon, and here I have to specify the package name and optional app nickname. For example, I can have both free and paid versions of my application in the same Firebase project as different apps, and I will need somehow distinguish between them. So I hit next, and then I see instructions on how to add Firebase to my native Android app, and it's mostly the same for Flutter Android app. But I'm skipping the next two steps completely because it's not needed to add Firebase as a dependency inside the app to be able to use Firebase App Distribution. Now we are all set with the new Android app. Overall, you can have up to 30 applications inside a single project. Just make sure they are all platform variants of the same application from the end user perspective. Otherwise, it can lead to serious configuration and data privacy concerns like unintended issues with analytics aggregation, shared authentication, or just overly complex database structure, and also difficulties with security rules. Generally, if apps don't share the same data and configuration, it's strongly advisable to register them in different Firebase projects. So we now can set up app distribution. I visit the release monitor app distribution, and as we said, it's a tool to manage pre-release distributions for all of your apps from the same place. I hit get started, and we are done. This is the place where I'll see all my releases and some stats about how the adoption of the new version is going. I have now dropped an APK file that I have built recently, containing the latest changes for my Android application. And it is now being uploaded to the service and validated. Firebase Distribution can hold up to 1,000 of the releases, after which it will automatically start deleting previous releases from the list. And it also deletes all the releases that are older than 150 days. Now that the APK file is processed, we get to a wizard for creating our first release, which suggests adding testers and groups. There is a dedicated tab next to Releases tab just for this. Here I am adding myself as an individual tester. Only testers with Google accounts will be able to access the app. One Firebase project can have a maximum of 500 testers. While it's possible to distribute a build to each individual tester, it's generally good practice to instead create groups of testers and release builds to larger groups of people in one click. So here I'm now creating a group called SOVA Internal Testers and add myself and Oleksandr to this group. It will represent what we call the Ring 0 testers in the phased approach we just discussed. Each app distribution group can hold up to 200 testers, and if you ever reach this maximum, you can just create internal testers 1 group and keep adding testers there. Okay. Well, since I'm here, let me also create SOVA external testers group. It will represent the Ring 1 testers to whom I will make the new release available after I gain confidence about its stability from the internal testers usage stats. And this is how the ring-based approach can be implemented in Firebase Distribution service. You saw previously that I was adding testers individually to the internal testers group. By the way, I just briefly showed there, it's also possible to upload emails list in a batch with CSV import. But anyways, as an admin of the Firebase project, I was in control of who gets into that group. For external testers group, I am going to take a different approach and allow users to access the group via the invite link. So here I'm visiting another tab in app distribution space. I hit create invite link and select a group that people with this link will be added to. As you see, I can optionally restrict access to this link only to certain domains, which is definitely useful in the world of corporate enterprise applications. And now I've got my link created. So now that we have testers group set up, we can go back to creating our first Firebase distribution release. Here I have a list of testers and tester groups and individual testers for granular control. I select SOVA internal testers, and next I can fill in the release notes to highlight what's new in this version of the application. Of course, it's the most awesome release of all times. I finally clicked the Distribute to 2 testers button and got this nice animation. And now that we are done and the very first Firebase app distribution release is ready, here we immediately see some statistics that 2 testers were invited, but 0 has accepted the invitation or downloaded the app. Let's now see how the experience looks like from the tester's point of view. Here is the email I, as a tester, immediately received after I was invited to test the Sava application. Testers who haven't been invited to test the app receive email invitation to get started, and they can have 30 days to accept an invitation before it expires. Existing testers receive email notifications that a new build is ready to test. So my email contains nice instructions on how to get started, including accepting the invitation and downloading the application. Thus, even non-technical early adopters won't have any problems installing the beta builds. So I tap Get Started, and it immediately becomes clear why having a Google email address is required. It's the only way to log in into the App Tester app. Firebase App Distribution wants to access my Google account to see, edit, create, delete my Firebase App Distribution tester data. Not so scary. Okay. So it's the first time I'm logging in with this email, thus I have all these additional steps. Testers can delete their app distribution tester account at any time. So I was finally able to accept the invitation to test this Sava application, and now I see the list of releases, including build number, date, and release notes. So I'll now download the app, install, and finally can open and enjoy the awesome update developer promised me in the release notes. One last thing I wanted to show you is how the app distribution dashboard changed after testers have installed the application. I now refresh the page and see that one of the testers accepted the invitation and has downloaded this version. And I can see exactly who that is. So the next time your tester says they still have this annoying bug, you can easily make sure they are actually using the latest version and not just forgot to install it. So after I have had the app version in the ring 0 for enough time, and I got confident about its stability, I can now push it to the ring 1 by distributing it to the external testers group. So far, we looked through all the steps required to create and distribute a release in Firebase App Distribution through its web interface called Firebase Console. Now let's talk about automating stuff. This part will be covered by Oleksandr, so keep your eyes on the screen.
The web interface makes things simple, but it requires manual interactions. And the manual approach is slow, error-prone, poorly scalable, and introduces some security concerns. I'll show you how to automate things. Let's start with the most obvious CLI tool we can use for Firebase distribution. It's called Firebase Tools. Let me open the terminal. If you are on Linux or macOS, you may get this tool by running the following command. If you are on Windows or just prefer Node.js, you may use this command instead. Let me run it. It asks for my user's passwords, and it says that I already have Firebase Tools installed, which is true, so it has nothing to do. Before we could use Firebase CLI tool, we need to authenticate. You may do this by running the following command: Firebase login. Oh, look, I already authenticated. How convenient for me. So we're ready to work on the distribution process. For now, I will still do things manually. So the bare minimum for the new release would be to bump the build number, compile the application, and publish it on Firebase. Let's do this. I will increment the build number first. It's the value after the plus in the version of your app. Now I will build a new APK, Flutter build APK. That will take a few seconds. Okay, the new build is here. Let's upload it to Firebase with the following comment. I will stop here for a bit. So Firebase tool is an extremely powerful utility. With it, you may control Firebase databases or hosting or distribute your applications. So currently I used app distribution command with distribute subcommand. The other app distribution subcommand allow you to add or remove testers, but we will not do that today. So I specified pass to the APK as a parameter, Firebase app ID, some release notes, and tester groups, which in that case have only internal tester group and just created. Let's run the command and check that the build appear on Firebase. It says that it's uploading binary. And now it should be there. Let's check. I'll update this page. And here it is. So far, we didn't get much benefit from that approach, except of usage of pleasant, gorgeous terminal and not silly, awful browsers. So our distribution process is hardly automated and still requires a lot of manual interactions. Let's change that. Firebase CLI tool is a powerful tool which serves many purposes. But as we're talking about distribution only, why don't we use a tool that was created for that purpose? If you're working in a team or just treat your project seriously, probably you already use Fastlane. In this project, we don't have it, so let's add Fastlane now. Firstly, we need to install Fastlane. You can do this globally, but I recommend you do that via bundler. That would allow you to use different Fastlane versions in different projects. You may think of bundler as a pub utility from Dart, but for Ruby projects. If you have Ruby installed, you probably already have bundler. Now we need to create a special file called gem file. As I might want to have different Fastlane configurations for Android and iOS, I will switch to Android folder now. And create the gem file. Let me open it. So inside this gem file, I need to specify where it should find dependencies, which are called gems here. So the source would be https rubygems.org. And I need to specify the Fastlane gem. You can see gem file is sort of pubspec.yaml file. Now I need to install the Fastlane, sort of do the pubget. I can do that with bundle install command. Okay, so it installed Fastlane and generated a new file called gemfile.log, where it logged dependency versions. It's really similar to what pub is doing. Now I need to initialize Fastlane in the project. I can do that with the following command: bundle exec fastlane init. Here I need to specify the package name. In our case, that would be chegk.droid. Okay, I don't want to set up distribution with Google Play now, so I'll just skip this step. And I don't want to download any metadata for the application, so I'll skip this step too. And that's it. Now I have Fastlane in repository. 2 files were generated by the wizard. The app file stores the information about the application, and fast file is the file with Fastlane configuration we will be working in. Fastlane works with lanes. A lane is a set of actions you define to automate a particular task or workflow. Currently, we have lanes for testing, uploading to beta testing, and deployment to Google Play. Before we will add Firebase Distribution here, we need to install the Firebase plugin for Fastlane. I can do that with the following command. Bundle exec Fastlane add plugin Firebase app distribution. Okay, so it asks for a permission to modify my gem file. I will allow that. And now we should have Firebase app distribution plugin in place. Let me clean up things a bit. I'll remove test, keep the beta, but I will make it to upload builds to Firebase and remove the distribution. Okay, before uploading the build, we need to compile it. In Fastlane, there is a special lane for compiling native Android applications, but I will use good old Flutter build APK command instead. Great. No chance I will enter Firebase app ID without any misprints, so let me copy-paste it here. And now I can use Firebase app distribution lane from the plugin we installed. Firebase app distribution. Okay, I will provide the same parameters we provided to the Firebase tool earlier. That would be Firebase app ID, Android artifact path, which is a path to our APK. So that would be build, app output, APK release, app release. I will provide a group for testing, and some release notes. Lots of amazing new features. Great! Before running this lane, let me modify the build number manually for the very last time. Great! It looks like now we may distribute the application. I'll use the following command. Bundle exec Fastlane beta. This command will build the APK and upload it to Firebase. So it's building and uploading. All right, uploaded APK successfully. Let's check that the build is indeed there. Great, it is there. Amazing, but so far it might be unclear why we added Fastlane to the project. Let's apply some best practices of internal build distribution. The first thing you might want to do is to create an automated build number increment. The command is a bit verbose, so let me copy-paste it. I will close the Explorer so you can see the whole command. Here I'm using Firebase app distribution get latest release command from the Firebase plugin. It fetches the information about the latest release so that I can increment the build version, which is the build number in the Flutter project. Such a tiny, simple thing already would improve the distribution workflow a lot and make it more robust. But we can do better. Let's do something with release notes. Generally speaking, we all should write meaningful release notes for each of the releases. But for beta builds, that's not always the case. Like from my experience, most of teams put Git commit messages there. So we may generate such a changelog with the following comment. Here I'm taking all commit messages between main branch and the head. Let's put that into the release notes. Great. Last but not least, your life and life of your QA engineers will be so much simpler if you could tell whether you are running local, production, or Firebase builds by just looking at the app's icon. Let's add a badge to Firebase build. For that, I will install warm-up plugin called badge. Bundle, exec, Fastlane, add plugin, badge. Okay, now I can use add badge command somewhere before I compile the application. Let's say here. It's time to create a new build. To see something in the release notes, let me create a new commit. I will commit Fastlane configuration. So gem file, app file, and fast file and plugin file. Add Fastlane commit message should be good enough. Commit. Okay, the distribution command is the same. Bundle, exec, Fastlane beta. Amazing. It says that the build is waiting for testers. Let's check what happened with the icon. That's what icons for the Firebase builds will look like. Now let's open Firebase and make sure that the build is there. Okay, it is there and the commit message is in the release notes. We already automated the distribution process a lot, but we still need to run a command. We can do better. Let's automate the distribution process on CI. For all deployments, we used my personal account. That's not right. To make a proper delivery, we need to create a service account, a special account that we will use for distribution. For that, we'll need to go to Firebase console, project settings, service accounts tab, manage service account permissions. I will tap create, let me close that, and that. I will tap create service account button. The account name would be Fastlane Distribution. It is really important to set the valid role for the account. That must be a Firebase App Distribution admin. This one. Let's continue. And we are done. Okay, I have a service account now. I need to generate a key for this account. For that, I'll click Manage Keys, Add Key, Create New Key. And we'll select JSON because it's a recommended option. It says the private key is saved to my computer. Back to code then. It's a common practice to store files as base64 strings on CI. Let's generate such a string from the downloaded file. I will copy-paste this huge string like that, and we'll put it in GitHub's secrets. For that, I'll open repository, settings, secrets and variables, actions, new repository secret, paste it here and give it a nice name. Back to code. Let's look at the current CI workflow. So we already have some simple job that is executed on every PR. Here we check out the repository, set up Flutter, install dependencies, and analyze the project. Let's imagine that now I want to generate a build for each PR so that I could check some functionality before it lands main branch. Let me copy-paste some steps for this. Firstly, I need to install Fastlane. For that, I will use a setup Ruby action where I specify the Ruby version, a flag that I do want to cache bundler dependencies that would save a lot of time in the real project, and the path to the Android project where gem file is located. With the next step, I deploy the application. For that, I decode the secret variable with the key for service account and run the same command you already so familiar with. Let me commit these changes with app beta distribution message. Okay, commit, publish the branch, and let's raise the PR. Okay. I will use my fork as destination. I change the PR title like Firebase Distribution and create the PR already. Let's see. Oh, look, there is a job running. Let's check it. And that would take some time. So let's use the only advantage of me speaking remotely and fast forward time. It took 10 minutes to distribute the app on CI. Let's check that the build is indeed there. And yes, it is. To recap, Firebase tool might save you some time opening the browser and drag and drop an APK file. Fastlane goes even further and automates even more of the routine. But once you set up CI workflow, you may forget how to do the deployment. And that's what I highly recommend you to do. CI will never forget to make a build, update release notes, or do any other step you ask it to. Fully automated approach will allow you to focus on features and not on routine. Back to Anna now.
So Firebase App Distribution provides some more convenient functionality, some of which is in beta, like notifying testers about the new version available with in-app alert, or providing feedback about the build. And let me show it to you in action. Back to tester's device, we see that after Oleksandr's automation exercises, the application icon has changed, and we have a few new versions available. But the last one is actually from me again, and the release notes says in-app feedback demo. I won't go into implementation details now, because this feature is still in beta and the implementation may change over time. But the main idea is that I had to add a Firebase app distribution dependency in my Android project natively, and also had shown a notification that requests testers to provide feedback every time Android activity starts. So now I tap this notification. And since this is the first interaction with this new feature, I have to log in with my Google account again. Now some redirects will happen. And I'm back to the app in the feedback form. Here I can attach a screenshot of the screen I took previously and provide some valuable feedback. Okay, feedback submitted. Now on the receiving end, as an app developer, I immediately received an email informing me that there is a new feedback available. And if I now refresh the dashboard, I can see exactly who gave the feedback, and what the feedback actually was, as well as view the attached screenshot. So that was an overview of Firebase app distribution functionality. Other Firebase services like Analytics, Crashlytics, Cloud Messaging are most likely already set up in your mobile application. So Firebase app distribution is a naturally nice addition to your development process that helps you easily distribute beta builds to trusted testers, get feedback, and ensure the product quality before end users see it live. Thanks for joining. Let's keep in touch on Twitter.